Wow, it's been a minute, but we are back on the Redraft channel
Let's go,
with
baby.
some more content. It's time to get hyped up for Redraft.
Mhm.
We've been grinding on the Dynasty channel, link in the description if you're interested. But we are bringing you our top 12 running backs.
Oh.
All right, it's a little bit early.
Mhm.
These absolutely will change. But Badake and I have spent a lot of time looking at our top 12, and we feel confident enough now to share that with you for a Redraft season. We do play in PPR format, so please keep that in mind.
Correct.
And we're going to look at each other's and just ask questions and kind of explain why certain players are in certain places.
Mhm.
So please don't get upset when you see my list. Let me explain. But
It was tough. It was tough, honestly.
This was tough.
I was going back and forth for a long time, really trying to figure out, do I want to put this person here? Do I need to put this person here? You know, like, it was tough, but I'm excited to hear who you like your list, and
Okay.
you know, I'm excited to say mine.
So let's bring my list up on the screen. And now, Badake, I've just pasted it in our notes, so you should be able to see it here.
Okay.
And I want to answer any questions that you have, and then I will talk about players individually as I want to talk about this list in general. But what's one thing straight off the bat that you want me to talk about looking at my top 12 list?
I'm not necessarily. It's not necessarily surprising. There is one person that I'm interested to talk about because I almost had him in my top 12. There's two people. Okay, so one I see is Alvin Kamara, and the second I see is Aaron Jones. So I do have, you know, Alvin Kamara a little bit significantly lower than you, and I don't have Aaron Jones in my top 12. But these were guys that were really, really hard to rank because I guess we can start off with Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, let me talk about Alvin Kamara first.
Mm-hmm.
So Alvin Kamara is my running back 4, and let me just explain. So Kamara played 13 games last year, okay? 13 games. And now these rankings that you're seeing right now, I am assuming that he will be there for all 17 games.
Correct.
Now, if reports come out that there's a suspension or whatever the case may be, if he's out for 4 games, of course that's going to drop him significantly. There's no question that it should. But right now these rankings are reflecting as if all these players are playing the entire season, okay? In 13 games last year, Alvin Kamara had 67 targets, all right? Which, if you equate that over a 17-game season, that would have been 87 targets on the season, which would have been third amongst running backs.
Correct.
Okay? So in a PPR format, I still think Alvin Kamara is going to be used heavily in the passing game. Now we're talking about an offense that was atrocious last year, Badake.
Exactly.
Now we get to add Michael Thomas. We get to add Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry. For me, this offense is going to be much better. The defense has always been good. The NFC is a very weak conference. I think it's a lock for Alvin Kamara to get 10 plus touchdowns if he plays 17 games. So for me, I'm not ready to let Alvin Kamara go in a redraft league. I still think that he can finish as a top 5, top 4 player in redraft leagues. He's going to get a bunch of targets. He's going to be much more efficient on the ground, that the offense is going to be more complete. So for me, I mean, I feel pretty confident about him being my running back 4. Aaron Jones was the other one that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, Aaron Jones.
Honestly, so he's not in your top 12.
He's not. I was going once again in the second half of in these top 12s, like 10, 11, 12, I guess, and more the bottom ends. It was really hard for me to put the pieces where it needed to go because I wanted to put all those guys there, you know?
Sure.
And Aaron Jones was one of those guys that I wanted to put in my top.
You know what I said, actually, when I first did this? I said there are genuinely 24 running backs that I think could finish top 12 this year. Genuinely. There are 24 running backs that I think could finish top 12, and maybe that means it's a good year to do wide receiver in the first round. You know, maybe. It depends. But you're going to see a lot of my rankings are based off of PPR, like thinking about receptions for my running backs. But let's talk about, you know, Aaron Jones, because you actually brought really great insight on Aaron Jones, and you actually convinced me to put him in my top 12, which is funny that he's not in yours.
We
had a video on our Dynasty channel, which was a win now running back targets video. Devontae Adams is gone, left 169 targets. Okay. Those will not be all filled by Christian Watson and Sammy Watkins.
Not at all.
That's just not going to happen. I also don't think that this team is going to throw the ball less because they have Aaron Rodgers, right?
Agreed.
So I looked at those 3 games that you had mentioned where Aaron Jones played without Devontae Adams. In 2021, he had 24 fantasy points, 11 targets. And there was 2 games in 2020. He had 45 fantasy points in one of those games. and then 16 in another one. So for me, I think the superstars of this team are going to be Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. And I think Aaron
Agreed.
Jones is going to get. I would not be surprised if Aaron Jones finishes top 5 in targets this year, because how do you replace Devontae Adams? You don't. You try and find ways to still be an effective offense. So for me, Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers hasn't become a worse quarterback.
No.
This offense isn't going to be worse. It's just going to be different. So I think Aaron Jones is going to have a monster year in PPR formats. Now, if we're talking about a standard league, I probably would have viewed it a little bit different. But in PPR,
Agreed.
I feel really confident on Aaron Jones. I was surprised that you didn't want to hear about CMC being my third running back.
No,
I can talk about that.
You can definitely talk about it. I'll give you the reasons why. I know how you view Austin Eckler. Maybe the community doesn't know, but I think all these guys really feel interchangeable. Your top 3 feel interchangeable, even though they aren't my top 3. But that's how I just know how you're viewing it. So that's why I wasn't as surprised.
Right. I would say Jonathan Taylor's still my one MVP caliber player last year, and we add Matt Ryan. I mean, yeah, I'm going to keep him at 1. I'm not going to think too hard on it. So the reason I have Austin Eckler over CMC, though, is a lot of people are going to be talking about how involved CMC was in the passing game. But if you actually look at last year, CMC had 5.8 targets per game. Okay. Austin Eckler had 5.8 targets per game.
Right.
So it's not as if CMC had some sort of edge, even in the games that he was healthy. He didn't have an edge over Austin Eckler in the receptions, in the PPR formats. Okay. And so when I look at, they're very similar in their targets per game, exactly the same, actually. Then I ask myself, well, who's on the better offense and who has less injury concerns? So you're telling me Austin Eckler's offense includes Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, an incredible offensive line that is probably top 5 in the NFL, playing in a conference with stacked offenses. There's going to be so many shootouts. Like, anyone could win that division. And then I'm looking at CMC and I'm saying, Sam Darnold is his quarterback?
Right.
Matt Corral? Jimmy G maybe? And then it's DJ Moore.
Okay.
And also, he is behind the second worst offensive line in the NFL last year, according to PFF. I know that they obviously got Icky in the draft, but for me, when I look at the injury history, the offense that they're attached to, and I just think CMC, I still think he's going to be super valuable. He's my RB3. A lot of people have him as a 1, but I would rather take the offense that Austin Eckler's in. That's why he's my number 2, and I think a lot of people might be frustrated by that.
No, I definitely hear what you're saying. My argument for Austin Eckler is not basically based off of, I do believe he could get the workload. One thing that Austin Eckler was, he was tied for first amongst running backs. He had 20 total touchdowns. And I do believe that we can see a decline in that just,
for sure.
Just based off of Isaiah Spiller.
Okay.
And
Spiller doesn't worry me at all.
And I'm saying,
but I do think it's unrealistic to expect 20 touchdowns again from Austin Eckler.
And I'm not saying that. I'm not even that. Like, I'm thinking of, is Austin Eckler really going to get the goal? And I agree. When I bought this take in another video, I was saying I do believe Austin Eckler, is crazy to say, is stronger, is better, is faster, or it's just a better overall running back than Isaiah Spiller, and I do believe he should get the goal line touches. But is that going to happen? So that's why I do believe I see the regression in the touchdowns.
With how effective he was last year, I don't see any reason for them not to keep him in the game on those types of situations.
Maybe it's a lot easier. Maybe it's for the Chargers to feel a lot more efficient if they get a bigger back, just a bigger body back to get there and just punch it in a lot easier maybe than what Austin Eckler would. Even though Austin Eckler, once again, I still believe he can punch it in as easy as Isaiah Spiller can. Yeah. We just got to wait and see if that happens.
Let's talk about the running back competition, though, for CMC. I mean, they just signed Deonta Foreman, Chuba Hubbard. I don't expect CMC to get this 90% snap share anymore. I really think that they want to extend his career. So if you're out there saying, well, CMC is going to be out on every single down, I don't know if that is true. I think we could probably see like a 75% snap share, which is still really high. But, I think he just had so much work, and now they need to think about his long-term career. He's still going to be fantastic if he stays healthy.
I do believe CMC can still be, the way I view this, I have JT as my RB1 and CMC as my RB2, and I think it's interchangeable 1A and 1B in my opinion, really depending on how you feel. The biggest concern with CMC is that injury. That injury, I guess, the injury in the past
just
season.
The injury history.
I don't want to say injury history, but I guess it is. It comes to that point now where it is.
It absolutely is. There's a history.
Injury history. But yeah, CMC, I do believe if he stays healthy, if he does that, if he does everything he was going to do, which we saw in the first 5 games, my guy, he was doing his thing. He was RB1. He was averaging 20.
Here's a realistic scenario here. Mm-hmm. All 3 of these guys can finish as the RB1. Mm-hmm. JT, Eckler, and CMC. Agreed. I fully believe that all 3 of them can finish as the RB1. Mm-hmm. Now, before we go to your rankings, because I could talk about all these guys, but is there anyone in particular that you saw that you wanted me to talk about before we swap over to your rankings?
No, I think everything feels really even to me. I can see where you're going with your rankings. I can see why maybe you put these guys, because you did it based off PPR, based on maybe the work that they get in the air, which I completely agree. So I see these guys. I guess my biggest question mark, because I have him not higher, but I guess maybe will be Swift. I really love Swift coming into the season. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
I love Swift. My concerns with him is, what is this offense going to look like? When he went out, we saw them kind of go towards the passing game a little bit more, and we saw it be really effective for them, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown was really effective for them, and he had 78 targets last year on 102 on 12 games played, excuse me. Mm-hmm. So if you actually equate him to an entire season, he would have been first in targets amongst running backs.
Agreed.
Now, my question is to everyone, and this is why I'm a little bit hesitant to move him up, is because what will this offense look like? We add Jameson Williams, TJ Hawkinson is going to be healthy. Amon-Ra St. Brown broke out. I mean, the defense got better as well. A lot of, if we all remember properly, if you owned DeAndre Swift last year, when did his work come? It came in the 4th quarter. And why was that? Because they were always down. And there was constantly these dump-off drives to DeAndre Swift. What if they are a better team? What if they're a more balanced team? Will we see as many dump-offs to end the game? So DeAndre Swift is one of those guys in my top 10 where I'm like, yeah, he could finish top 3. He absolutely could.
Yeah.
But I'm not like fully ready to commit to him over other options at this point. Okay.
I mean, yeah, I see where you're going with it. I think despite all that being said, I actually believe it'll be more efficient for DeAndre Swift, with the,
it could be, sure.
With Williams coming in, with TJ Hawkinson staying healthy, with Amon-Ra St. Brown with the breakout year, maybe.
Can I say this? Mm-hmm. From running back 6 to 10, it is so close to me. Like if you have Swift over Joe Mixon, I'm not upset. I'm pretty solid on Leonard Fournette, but that's how tight it is for me from 6 to 10. Like I am really open for DeAndre Swift or any of those guys being in any sort of rank. So.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. So for me, Swift just feels like, sorry, Blaze. Swift just feels like he's going to be more efficient coming into this year. Maybe less in the passing game, but more efficient on the ground, which is still just as okay. Maybe he does lose
He'll
15,
still be involved for sure.
20 touches in the whole season, which I don't think will be more. He will be added to that running back on the ground attempt. So that's how I'm feeling.
All right, so let's look at your list here then. We'll bring your list up on the screen now. So you have Jonathan Taylor 1, CMC 2, Najee Harris 3. So I'm surprised you didn't ask me about that because I didn't have him that high. I didn't have Derrick Henry this high either. At 4, Austin Eckler at 5, Mixon at 6, so we're right on board there. DeAndre Swift at 7, Javonte at 8, which is surprising to me because you have so many concerns with him, but you have him higher than me. We'll talk about that. Dalvin Cook, we have at the same ranking. I'm higher on Fournette and Kamara than you. And then it looks like 12. You got to pick one here. You got to pick one.
It's a tough one.
Is it Saquon or is it James Conner?
I feel like the safer answer is James Conner.
Okay, so let's go James Conner. So I want to ask you about I want to start specifically with Najee Harris. He's your running back 3. I know he finished as a running back 3 last year, but I just want to hear why you have him there at the RB3 because I have some serious concerns for him.
Right. I know a lot of people are talking about, well, they got George Pickens. This should be more an efficient offense. They're probably going to throw the ball a lot more. He's probably going to lose touches. But I think in my opinion, he is locked for that 300 plus touches again on the ground. He had 300, if I'm not mistaken, 310, 307 touches around there, and he led the league, or he was tied for first in league in targets, amongst running backs. So I do believe that that's going to continue. He probably won't be tied for first. I do believe he will be a top 8 guy in targets, which still will be more efficient. Let's also remember, he didn't score that many touchdowns, and I think since this offensive line with this quarterback now and Kenny Pickett, they just got Kenny Pickett, George Pickens. They signed James Daniels, Cole Mason. These guys, the offensive line, they had issues. So now they're not superstars, right? These aren't like guys that are going to automatically change your offensive line, but they got better. They addressed it. They're going to mesh well a little bit better. Granted, they had Big Ben, and he wasn't the guy. I think we saw that this past year. He wasn't that Super Bowl caliber quarterback that we all loved and knew. Now with Kenny Pickett, I don't think he's just going to coming flames hot. I think they're going to rely on the running game a lot. I don't think they're going to.
I agree there. Let me tell you where my concern is with Najee, because I have him as my RB7.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's anyone who averaged a high amount of targets per game last year from the running back position who is due for regression, Najee screams out to me. He's due for regression, right? Because Big Ben and these, hopefully the offense is not the same this year, right? Hopefully it doesn't look the same.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh threw the ball the 4th most times per game last year, and Big Ben averaged the 3rd fewest yards per throw. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm worried, because surely I anticipate the Steelers' game plan changing a little bit. The run game, absolutely, he's going to be super involved in the run game, but will these quarterbacks be as bad as Big Ben, where they're just dumping it off that many times? I'm not so certain about it. I know he's going to be the workhorse, but I think he's due for regression in a PPR format. I still have him as a top 7 guy, but I personally don't know that top 3 is on the cards. But I'm happy to hear from where you're coming from.
Yeah, I guess to sum it up.
I also don't think that they've really improved the offensive line.
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. I agree.
No offense to the guys they signed, but that's not the answer.
I don't think they're the answer, but I think they did address it in a small way, right?
Okay.
And I guess to sum it up, in my opinion, for Najee Harris is that he'll probably have less targets, but he'll have more touchdowns. Okay, he only had 10 total touchdowns, 7 on the ground, 3 in the air. I think he can hit, the 14 touchdowns on the ground and maybe less. Maybe he has 1 or 2 touchdowns in the air, which I think will still project him in that top 3 for me. So that's why I feel comfortable putting Najee in my top 3.
Yeah, I don't know if there's enough work in the pass game, but I respect that. So the other player that I wanted to ask about was Leonard Fournette. Why so low on Fournette?
It was tough. Once again, I felt more comfortable having some of these other guys. Leonard Fournette, there's no doubt. You have him top 5? There's no doubt.
I have him as my RB5. Yeah.
Yeah, I took him in our rookie PPR mock draft. I took him as the RB5. I felt comfortable there taking him, but I do believe that Rachaad White will come in and take a little bit of targets, not to the point where he is going to just fall and drop, because I do believe this team is going to contend for a Super Bowl. Tom Brady is here to play again. He was top 3 in targets amongst running backs. I do believe it still can happen, but it just felt more comfortable taking some of these other guys over Leonard Fournette and what I believe they can do. I do believe he can still finish as a top 5 running back, but I just feel more comfortable. That's really the answer.
I'll tell you why I had him at 5. And I guess if you think Rachaad White's going to be involved, I get it. The caveat there for me is, well, they had Giovanni Bernard last year, and he was a pass catching specialist, and they still use Lenny. Lenny played 14 games last year, 84 targets. Okay, so he would have led the league in targets if he played every single game.
Yeah, I hear you.
And Chris Godwin won't be back at the beginning of the year. He might miss a couple games. Gronk won't be back from what it looks like. So for me, Fournette feels like on track to get those 6 targets per game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a difficult one. All right, Javonte Williams is your number 8. Why so high on Javonte Williams? I think he's top 12, but I was struggling to put him this high.
Once again, all these, like you said, your top 3 or top 5 are interchangeable. This middle pack for me is interchangeable. Any of these guys can break out, and especially Javonte Williams, your top year 2 guy coming in. Is Melvin really going to be getting all these touches? Is Melvin really going to be getting the 60-40 workload? I actually, as much as I didn't want Melvin, as much as I keep saying, why not Melvin? And now they re-signed him. I actually don't believe that he is going to be taking more than 30% of the workload. Javonte Williams will be the goal line back. Javonte Williams, this offense will be more efficient. Russell Wilson's here. Best believe this offense is going to be in shootouts. This offense is going to be in the red zone, on the goal line. And who are they going to give the ball to? They're going to give the ball to Javonte Williams over Melvin Gordon. That's why I have him in my top 8. Once again, these guys are very, very interchangeable. And we saw this guy, he was leading the league in breaking evasive tackles. My guy's going to do that year 2 on the goal line. All right? So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, he had over 1,200 all-purpose yards as a rookie. Enter Russell Wilson. So I think he's going to be top 12. I don't know, though. I think Melvin's going to play a part. I do think he's going to play a part on the goal line. All right. So is there anyone else on this list that I really was confused? So Derrick Henry at 4, I'm not upset about that at all. I get it. I think Austin Eckler's too low, obviously, from what we've talked about. I also think Alvin Kamara is a little bit too low, but I get it. So I think
he was really hard for me to rank. Because I hear you.
I'm ranking him as if he will be there the whole season.
Yeah,
so
and
that could change.
I took that into consideration as well, that he will miss the 4 games, or the expectation that he will miss 4 games if he does get suspended. So I was ranking him based off that. But I hear you with the efficiency, the on the ground, in the air. I hear you. Yeah.
Players that I wasn't able to fit into my top 12, and I'll tell you how I currently have them ranked. I had Nick Chubb at 13. I had Josh Jacobs at 14. I had James Conner at 15 and Saquon at 16.
Okay.
Just quickly on James Conner, he scored a ton of touchdowns, and that's how he was fantasy relevant in 2021.
Exactly. And that's why this is so hard, because
I'm concerned about the efficiency. That's what I'm really concerned about, because it was really below average. If you look at James Conner, his true yards per carry, which is something that Player Profiler, they put a premium on runs that are over 10 yards. If you look at his true yards per carry, it was 62nd in the NFL. How many, touchdowns within the, 5-yard line was James Conner accounting for last year? And by the way, if you think he's going to get all the involvement in the passing game like he did while Chase Edmonds was gone, they just signed Darrell Williams, who had the 12th most targets amongst running backs last year in Kansas City.
I hear you.
So Connor worries me a little bit more than the average person.
For me, and that's why it was so tough, because I do believe, and I was trying not to make this bias. I was trying not to say, you know what? I was really trying to say I really believe in Saquon, but at the same time, Connor is in that same conversation. Can Saquon stay healthy? Can James Conner stay healthy? Can Saquon be that top 5 RB that he used to be in his rookie year? Well, he was injury prone. James Conner's injury prone. Well, James Conner's technically on the better offense. James Conner's going to get the work on the goal line. James Conner could be getting the targets. Well, same thing with Saquon. It's the arguments is the same.
Yeah.
We all know who's more talented.
Yeah.
It's so tough. It's so tough for me. But I hear you on the James Conner argument for sure. I'm
excited to make videos about all these guys, but you have both of our top 12s. Feel free to ask us any questions. And, you can disagree in the comments below. That's fine. Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.